it was built on the philosophy of black freedom on the continent. That this was the first place that black people can rule themselves after enslavement. So not just pre-colonial history of the location of Sierra Leone today, but you talk about enslavement, you talk about commerce, and you talk about Christianity. These were all things that played important factors to the founding of present-day Freetown. Okay, so if you look down, Amber, you see down there, down where you have some boats, right? Coming in. So you see an indentation coming right through to Congo Town, right?
Yeah,
that's White Man's Bay.
Yeah.
That's the White Man's Bay.
Oh, yeah. That's the name of it?
Yeah, that's the White Man's Bay. So where we standing here today is originally Smith Hill or Wansley Hill, but now it's Tower Hill, right? And why was it Tower Hill? Because if you turn right now to this Parliament building, you see something like a truncated tank there, right? Okay, fine. So you see the where the tank is. That was the Martello Tower, and this is how deep in this space is. So when you start going down and walking across certain spaces, you start seeing, like for instance, the St. George's Cathedral. People never knew that St. George's Cathedral was the diocese of the whole of not just Sierra Leone. So when they said the diocese of Sierra Leone, it included Cape Coast or Gold Coast, which is Ghana, Lagos, the Madeiras. So as far as Morocco, Sierra Leone was the diocese of the British Church for Morocco. So this how significant that the British knew, the European knew about this location. So it was the center for British West Africa. So when people talk about independence movements, Casey Hayford and others talking about Ghana's independence, this guy studied here. And the first university established for Western style education in the whole of the continent in 1827, which is Old Frobe College. Let us have an agreement that we can go back, because the foundation of Freetown, or the Grand Freetown or Province of Freedom that became Freetown in 1792 by renaming, is that it was built on the philosophy of black freedom on the continent. That this was the first place that black people can rule themselves after enslavement. So the first mass ever held by black people on the continent of Africa was held under a consent tree, signifying that and symbolizing that we are free. You see issues of pre-colonial artifacts, games that people used to play.
Oh, it's Mancala. Do they call this Mancala? What is this game called?
It's known as Bori.
Bori?
Yeah.
Bori.
So we call it that in Trinidad.
Okay.
My father once, right?
They call it Normally, right? So this is like a national treasure. Mm-hmm. It is even illegal to travel with this as per UNESCO's convention and Sierra Leone law. This mask is not just a mask, it is a unification mask of tribes, especially women. Because this is a secret society that was developed mainly for women, right? So this is Falui. You saw it also in Moyamba, when they don't just come out. They come out when paramount rulers come out, or they are transitioning.
I was in Sierra Leone for about 13 or 14 days. I learned a lot in a little bit of time, and I still have so much to learn. Before we wrap up this video, we're going to head over to the church and then the masjid, and I have one more video for you, which is the citizenship ceremony where we take our oath with the president and get our passports.
The depths of the waters, then you know women. Which is a very deep mythology. So, if you can go to the bed and the depths of the water, you might understand the life of a woman. In the Caribbean, they kept their African traditions. So today, even if you go and see some of the colonial laws of the Caribbean, it is, you were sentenced to death by practicing what they call voodoo, which was the African spirituality that they practice. So laws were passed to undermine that you don't do it. You don't go to a priest or a priestess that will give you doctrine in these spiritual practices. Right. So after the Maroon War, when they were shipped into Nova Scotia and came to Freetown in 1800, it was the integration of the Nova Scotians who had got English and Western enlightenment via Christianity that started exposing them to Christianity. So they never knew about that. They were hard to even accept it. So that's why they formed their own small community with Christian integration and then built their own church. So even when they build the church, they build it on some level of Afrocentric model. So if you go into this church, you still see truss to the building from original board that they dismantled on a slave ship. So even there, you see the bell there, that bell was from the slave ship. Enslaved Africans that were freed came with that bell on board and they use it. So for instance, like you have Christmas Day or calling for church service, they ring it. They have another big bell there, but this one is the historic bell. So we were talking about the graveyards in Bones Island that mostly Europeans are afraid of the graveyard, right? Right? They did not really go close to it. The first priest or reverend that they sent here was a young guy. He died here and is buried inside the church. That's also to explain to people about the Afrocentrism that the Maroons had even in the church. So they had no problem with having him buried inside the church.
What about the connection to
But most of these people, Maroons, they came. Some of them got rich in Sierra Leone, in Freetown. They got money. They built ship as well, and then traveled back to Maroon country in Jamaica. So you had transportation going back and forth by Maroons. So most of them that came into this space, once they got rich, they built their own boats and then traveled back to Maroon country. They went there again, things became difficult. They took their ship and came back to Freetown. So today, the Flagstaff Maroons in Jamaica have deep connection with this church, and some of them, when they come here, they visit here. And in 2016, we have a Maroon reunion from the Sierra Leone government in Jamaica.
Okay.
They were there. You see the old boards, these are from the slave ships. This is from slave ship, the back end there is the slave ship. That's a graveyard. The first reverend that came here, young guy, in 23 years, died here, and then he's buried there where those instruments are now. So that because they started having bulbs, termites eating it up, so we had to replace. Yeah, we had to replace it. So, but this one you see, those back there are all original boards from the ship. You see the difference. You see the stuff. You see the difference in the stuff.
This is our visitor group, and this is our donation box. If you wish, we don't force anybody.
Okay.
If you wish to put something, okay. You don't wish to.
Where do we put it? Just open it?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
You see, and then let me just find the stool.
Okay. Yeah.
Very important. And let me go and find a back a history. I have the paper so you can take it picture.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring it. I have it.
See, a lot of people. as products of the hot tax rebellion. King's Yard Gates, right? So this was the gates that is the main gates in downtown of Freetown, where when you are processed through the asylum, you march through these gates, then you are now free. So when we talk about Sierra Leone history cannot be disconnected with transatlantic enslavement, abolition, transatlantic enslavement, resistance, and abolition. So when abolition happened, freedom was being calculated in spaces like this. So this was a landscape. Once people are processed and they pass through, they come into this space that we're standing now, they became free men. In Sierra Leone and Portuguese transatlantic enslavement and shipments, right? This is one of the fundamental spaces. This is a very popular place in most historical and scholarly work. This was one of the places that you can get fresh water and supplies for ship and then travel. So all of those recorded groups that came into Freetown, they landed here. So when people talk about Sierra Leone, is one place that has the elements of movement out and return. These were some of the discussions we were having with the year of return and where is the original return and everything. I saw a lot of those in the media and stuff when Ghana did the popular year of return.
This is marketing. It's marketing, but not history.
So in 1787, this was the first spot of African return on the continent of Africa. So this space, people landing, walk through and then going into that building as liberated Africans. If they are free, they don't go across. They come in here, process them, and they come through that door, that gate, and move into town and become free people and go to their designated villages given to them by the liberated African department. During the era of transatlantic enslavement and shipment, these steps that you see were used to chain enslaved Africans. So if you see the bluff here, the bluff on that side, you can still see chains going right down. Even some buildings within these structures, right? Under cellars, where people would have marched through and then wait for ship there and then head out. So this would be like a slave ship, a slave step. March then, so even when they return again, they march through the same space that they went through to go and return back to the continent. So she was so popular to bring that.
This is who the hotel is named after?
Yeah. And she is from Moyamba.
Oh, from Maroon.
Where we did the naming ceremony for you guys. We sail the boats actually towards the sun, and then at night we reverse the boats back. Like the true founder of the name Freetown, when the Nova Scotians came, because he led the petitioning in UK, and then the father of Pan-Africanism in Pan-African studies. Okay. Born in St. Thomas. This building that you see was a train building. So the Sierra Leone Railway started in 1898. So now they don't have a train because the train folded in 1975 exclusively, right? But from 1898 up to 1975, there was a train in Sierra Leone that went into the interior. So today bus come here as a bus station, but it was a train station. So it's converted. So if you walk across there, you still see some lines. So the train will go through here. There is a bridge there known as Falcon Bridge, just across the Susan's Bay, and then you move, you go across. So even that Susan's Bay was named because one of the colonial people living here had a girlfriend known as Susan that he left in Europe.
So when he came into Sierra Leone, that bay we call it Susan's Bay.
I need somebody to listen to that much. I'll be